Hello, my name is James, and sometimes I remember to upload stuff to this second channel. After 5 seasons, The Boys finally just ended the other day, and I think the finale was pretty good. Yeah, it's rare for a TV show to get a proper ending in the streaming age, but it's also rare just in general for a TV show to have an ending that I look at and I go, yeah, that was pretty solid. I have complaints, certainly. I especially have complaints about the season leading up to that ending, but the ending itself was pretty good. Also, this video is going to be filled with spoilers for both the Boys show and the comic. I'm looking at discussion online, and a lot of people disagree with me. There are certainly people who think it's good, but a lot of people seem to think it's bad, and they're mainly complaining because of the season that led up to this point. But here's the thing. The same way that a bad ending will not ruin a good show in its entirety, a good ending will not save a bad show in its entirety, and The Boys kind of does all of that at once, because it is simultaneously a very good show and a very bad show. It also simultaneously has a very good ending and a very bad one. So some of the complaints I don't really care about, like people complaining that Homelander went out like a bitch. Yeah, he's supposed to go out like a bitch. He had his powers and there was nothing else underneath that. He was an empty shell of a man. Self-absorbed narcissists like that do not go out with dignity. So I don't really care about people who complain about that. One complaint that I agreed with initially as season 5 got going, and I've changed my mind about, is that people complained there was not enough going on, and that it was all filler, which was just leading up to the climax. And I disagree. Season 5 has the exact opposite problem. There's too much going on, and they don't have time to get to it all. At the beginning of this season, we have an introduction to the new America, where there are concentration camps being built all over the place and political dissenters are being thrown in. It has full-on become a police state. There is a president and a government there, but Homelander is effectively king of America now. There's an underground resistance movement called the Starlighters fighting against this. The heroes are searching for a way to kill Homelander, and then they find it, but it doesn't quite work out because he gives himself like super special juiced up powers of some sort, and then the virus they developed no longer will kill him, so then they have to come up with a new plan to defeat Homelander. Ryan, Homelander's son, is there. Billy Butcher, the leader of the Boys, who has been here this whole time, is slowly dying of whatever illness ails him. And a bunch of characters have to finish off their arcs. Kimiko has to finish off her arc. Huey and Annie have to finish off their arcs. Butcher has to finish off his arc. Homelander has to finish off his arc. The Deep and A-Train and Firecracker have to finish off their arc. And they introduce a couple of new characters. There's a lot going on here, and I think a lot of it just gets lost in the shuffle. Because this season is only 8 episodes long. That's only 8 hours to go through all of this. If this was like a 16-episode series, maybe it could work, but there's just too much going on here, and so a lot of stuff that would otherwise be good just kind of gets glossed over or pushed aside or skipped entirely. For example, the fact that there are actual fucking concentration camps where thousands of political dissidents are being, concentrated, is a big thing for the first couple episodes, and then they just completely forget about it afterwards. Like, the Boys escape from one of them early on in the season, and then they're just never brought up again. They don't try to get the word out to the rest of the country about what's going on in there. They don't try to break in and break anybody else out or anything like that. They just forget about it. And I'll be honest, America outside of the concentration camps feels exactly like the same America that we saw in the first 4 seasons of The Boys. Like, the characters don't really feel like they're fugitives from justice or like they're in hiding. It feels like they are just doing the same thing that they were doing for 4 seasons, and that's weird. Another thing that could have been a lot of fun that gets skipped over is O-Father. He is a new character they introduce, and when they first introduced him, I was super hyped because he's a parody of like mega church pastors and televangelists, except he's just also a superhero. And I thought, yes, this could be a lot of fun. They could make a lot of really good jokes with that, and they could make some actual social commentary with that. They could do some plot lines with that. Let's see where it goes. And O-Father is a fun character. Every time he's on screen, I liked him. He got some good laughs out of me, especially his death. His death in the last episode is so abrupt and caught me so fucking off guard. I had to rewind because I was laughing so hard that I missed the next scene after that. But there's so much other stuff going on that he just gets lost in the shuffle, and he never really develops into a full character. Same with some other Supes they introduce who are meant to be like young influencers, like they live in a content house and they just make like Instagram and TikTok type stuff, which is, again, an interesting idea because the Supes have always been a parody of celebrity culture as well as superhero stuff, but they never really go into that. They don't have enough time spent on those guys for it to mean much of anything. And I could go on and on like that for a while. There's a lot of stuff that could be interesting, but it gets pushed aside for more important stuff. That said, I think the more important stuff is handled really well. I think the overall plot, once we finally get going and we finally get to the final confrontation where the heroes fight Homelander at the White House, I think that works great. The action and the choreography are a lot of fun, and it gets to that final moment, that final confrontation where Homelander loses his powers, and Butcher also loses his powers, so they're just two normal dudes now, and Butcher fucking wipes the floor with him, and then Homelander is sitting there begging for his life, and Butcher violently kills him. It was reminiscent of the ending of Death Note, where Light Yagami finally is stripped of the Death Note, and he's backed into a corner and he can't do anything else, so he just starts begging for his life because he really does think he's above everybody else, but at the end of the day, he isn't. And of course, the final twist where Butcher, now that he has completed his vengeance and he has nothing else left other than the hate and the rage, he just starts lashing out at other people, and he tries to unleash the virus and unleash the virus? What? And he tries to unleash the virus and kill a bunch of innocent people, and Huey is forced to stop him and kill him, which is also exactly how the comic ends. It's actually one of the few really good moments from the comic. And I think just about all of the major characters who had their arcs complete in a very satisfying way. Huey has his arc complete in a very satisfying way because he never wanted to be anyone important or powerful. He was fine just being a regular guy, and he got dragged into all of this because his girlfriend died, so at the end, he and Starlight are having a baby, and he opens up his own small business. And Huey is the more positive reflection of Butcher in that way, because they both had very justifiable reasons to hate Supes and to be angry at them and to be angry at the whole system which created them and allowed them to get away with their crimes, but Huey did not give in to that rage and that hate, and so at the end of Season 1, when A-Train actually has a heart attack, Huey saves his life, remember? So he doesn't get consumed by his anger and he doesn't get consumed by his hate. He still stays intact and he still stays a good person, whereas Butcher gave up everything in pursuit of vengeance, and then once he got that, there was nothing left. In fact, I'm thinking back to Season 1, that moment where he beats Haley Joel Osment to death. I think that's the first moment where I realized that Butcher's not a good person. He's fighting people who are even worse than him, for the most part, but that doesn't make him a good person.
Please, I have a daughter! No!
Speaking of characters that are reflections of one another, we have A-Train and the Deep, both of whom are very interesting characters. I like watching both of them. They're both very entertaining. The Deep especially is absolutely hilarious. But in the first episode, they're both introduced as being pieces of shit, because A-Train kills Robin by accident, and the Deep sexually assaults Starlight. And the Deep is offered a ton of chances to try and redeem himself and to become a better person, but he just doesn't take any of them because that would require effort, and also because he's just really, really stupid. So he stays loyal to Homelander till the very end. He gives up absolutely everything for him, and in the end, that's what winds up killing him. On the other hand, there's A-Train, who does, again, do a horrible thing in the very first episode of this show, but by being saved by Huey, he starts to become a better person, and then he starts acting better, and eventually his own brother also gets hurt by a Supe in Season 3, and he realizes just how awful it is to watch somebody you love get hurt that way, and he does sincerely apologize to Huey afterwards, and it's a weirdly heartfelt moment between the two of them. And he does get revenge on the guy that hurt his brother, and he nearly dies in the process, and when I first watched it, I thought that his arc should have ended there. I thought he should have just died there, and that should have been it. But I actually am glad that they kept him around, because he continues until Season 5, and he dies very early on in the season because he tries to defy Homelander. However, he's running away from Homelander, and a woman steps out into the street in front of him, and it's very reminiscent of the moment in Episode 1 where he kills Robin, but this time he actually cares enough to step out of the way and not hurt her, but then he trips and injures himself, and then Homelander catches and kills him. So he is now the type of person who would sacrifice himself for a random stranger. And then he has a conversation with Homelander where he tells him, "I can't believe I used to be afraid of you, you're pathetic and weak." And it's one of the best moments in this entire season. Like, for all the flaws Season 5 has, it has some great fucking moments like that, which make it worth watching.
That's so funny.
What was I so afraid of? It's just an empty fucking suit. Weak. Sniveling fucking loser.
And that's my final verdict. Like, I think the ending is pretty solid because pretty much all the characters have satisfying conclusions to their arcs. Not Soldier Boy, but I'm not sure what the fuck they were trying to do with him after Season 3, to be honest with you. All the rest of them have very satisfying conclusions. The action was fun, the humor was great. Again, Oh Father's death had me fucking howling. It was amazing. However, I have seen a couple of people try to defend the ending of The Boys comic and just try to defend the comic in general, and we need to not do that. The ending of the comic has a couple of small similarities, but overall it's completely different. See, Homelander and the rest of the Supes do a coup, and they take over the US government, they kill the president and all the rest of them, and then Butcher and the other boys come up to try and stop them. Now, I should mention that up until this point, Homelander has been a jerk, but he hasn't really been a psychopath, except that there are pictures and videos of him doing absolutely psychotic shit, which I don't even know if I can talk about it on YouTube, but he's killing people and doing other things, and he doesn't remember doing it, so he just assumes he's crazy, and that causes him to lose his mind for real. However, in the final couple of chapters, after they do the coup, Black Noir, the ninja gimp guy, takes off his mask, and it turns out he's been a clone of Homelander the whole time. And he was the one that went off and did all those evil things, including sexually assaulting Butcher's wife, which is what kicks off the events of the series. And then they fight, he kills the original Homelander, but then the Homelander clone / Black Noir is really badly injured, so Butcher is able to finish him off, and he gets revenge for his wife in that way. And then they go to the whole thing about him trying to release a chemical weapon on the world, and Huey has to stop him. Look, I think the comic is interesting, I think it has some stuff to say, but I'm not going to pretend that that big twist about Homelander having a clone was not shit from a butt, because that was shit from a butt. And before I go, I just want to take a moment to say that the acting in this show is absolutely fucking fantastic. I mean, the heroes, the villains, the leads, the side characters, the extras that are just in the background for one singular scene, every single performance in this show is great. Every single performer is putting in their all. Every single one of them is believable, whether they're being comedic or serious or dramatic, or they're saying something ridiculous, or they're saying something that makes perfect sense. It doesn't matter. They are all fantastic, and I just needed to say that. That's all. The Boys finale is pretty good. I know there's a lot of people that dislike it, but I just disagree with them. The Boys finale is pretty good. That's all. Goodbye.